His Excellency Danilo Aquino III.
Matagal pong naligaw ang pamahalaan sa daang baluktot. Ang pera ng taong bayan ay gagastusin para sa taong bayan lamang. Ito po ang tweet. Wang din ang milyong-milyong pabuya at ibinaon pa sa utang 232 milyong piso po.
Ang Pilipinas ay sa Pilipino at handa kaming ipagtanggol ito. Ang Pilipino ngayon, taas noong tinitingala ng buong mundo. Paano na sa 2016, mga boss? Isipin nga po natin, saan ba tayo nagmula?
Good evening, I'm Mitzi Borromeo. Welcome to News Cafe. With President Benigno Aquino III due to address the country next week on July 28th for the State of the Nation address, we take a look at the president's words through the years and review how he has delivered on his commitments. Joining me tonight are three journalists to analyze the president's addresses through the years, the state of our nation under his leadership, and what to expect at next week's SONA. They are Conrado Banal, columnist at the Philippine Daily Inquirer, Marichu Villanueva, associate editor of the Philippine Star, and Danilo Arao, assistant professor of the Department of Journalism at the UP College of Mass Communication. Good evening and welcome to News Cafe.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
So, very important time now. We're kind of going to take a look at President Aquino, sort of report card and how he's done, no, through the years. So, in the past three SONAs, medyo on the offensive siya, no? We saw him talking about what his predecessors left him. What do you think he'll be doing in the next, what are your sort of predictions, initial predictions for 2014, Marichu?
You are very accurate in describing it as the first three SONAs is very offensive. And I think he lost the opportunity during his first SONA to extend the hands of reconciliation. He could have done that in the first day of his first year of his administration. He has extended the hands of reconciliation to the defeated rivals, invite them to help him in the transition of his office, and then he can start the things right. But as the first SONA, all he did was to criticize the previous administration, and I never hear him anything saying, I invite my defeated rivals to come to a sort of modus vivendi, like the previous presidents, like a good example is former President Fidel Ramos, who was a minority president, as you know, when he was elected by very minority voters. And he extended his hands of reconciliation in his first SONA.
Yeah.
So it started things right for him.
Yes. Danny? Yes.
Well, unlike in the past, when the first State of the Nation address was delivered in 1936, it was not much of a media spectacle, very much unlike what it is now. So I guess we can expect a lot of sound bites, a lot of one-liners from the president. And while it's an advantage that he delivers the speeches in Filipino, unlike the past administrations that would deliver in either English or a mix of Filipino and English, now it's more understandable to the common folk. And I guess that would partly explain why sometimes it may sound unpresidential, but President Aquino has that penchant for using street language or colloquial language to deliver the message.
Yeah.
But then again, it all boils down to the truthfulness behind the message, because no amount of rhetoric could cover up for the real situation of the country. What's interesting to note is that way back in 1936, the State of the Nation address of then President Manuel Quezon was quite direct. The title is On the Country's Conditions and Problems. That's it. And that's what's supposed to be the character of a State of the Nation address. You're supposed to put in context the social conditions, and from there you will define the legislative agenda, the proposals in terms of laws or any resolutions that the administration would want Congress to look at.
Yes.
But now it is a situation for chest thumping, for blaming administrations, whether in the recent past or during the dark days of martial law. So I think it would be more of the same. I just simply hope that it will not exceed more than 1 hour.
Yeah, 2013 was an hour 44 minutes.
Yes,
so
exactly.
Because it was in Tagalog.
Yeah, because it was in Filipino. Yeah, partly. But yeah, that's our hope right now.
Yeah.
But we're not expecting much in terms of messaging, because as in the past, it will be just another media spectacle.
Okay, Conrad.
Oh, you know, I have searched, Danny, high and low, for a serious study on the impact of the SONA through the years. You know, like how many people actually listen to it? You know, and how many understand what the president was saying?
Right.
So in the past 3 SONAs, I'm guessing now, you know, that he used, as you said, colloquial and, you know, like cute language.
Yeah.
In order to bring down the message to the people.
Yeah.
Because he was attacking the previous administration.
Yes.
Now cracks are showing in his administration, and that should make us wonder maybe he will use high level language so that less people will understand him.
This is his
For
way
the
of
next
being
song.
defensive.
That's a way saying that he'll
Just
have to be
confuse
defensive.
people.
Yeah,
He has to
probably.
explain all the issues in his administration now, or else the SONA will lose credibility
Yeah.
to whoever are listening. You know, mainly the foreign community, the business community, the political groups, the NGOs, the church, especially. So he will have to address his
Right.
issues in order for the SONA to be meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's step back then. Look at him on his first SONA when he talked about the tuwid na daan. So this is where he had his battle cry, ano? Kung walang corrupt, walang mahirap. So this started the ball rolling on his activities to wean corruption away from government. So Marichu, you wrote an article about this. What is your take on his performance, how he delivered on this commitment?
I think he's very calculating leader. If you review the past 4 years, with the help of his allies in Congress, he started with the battle on corruption in government. He started with the armed forces of the Philippines. Remember when the Senate inquiry dealt with the pabaon generals?
Yes.
Then on the second year, he went against his allies, in Congress, they investigated the alleged corruption of the clergy using state funds from the PCSO, and remember the SUV, quote,
Very
unquote,
controversial.
bishops.
Yeah.
Then on the third year, he went against the Chief Justice, his allies, again, in Congress, impeached and ousted from office Chief Justice Renato Corona.
Yes.
And now he has installed his own appointee. And he has now 4 justices in the Supreme Court. And the fourth year, they went against the pork barrel and the other, but it backfired, as we now seeing, on the congressman that spent during the previous administration, but not his allies. It has spared his allies. And mostly the victims, the ones being crucified now are from
Yes.
the opposition and likely candidates in 2016. So I think in that line of the battle cry against corruption,
Right.
he has made a lot of headway and he has made a lot of goodwill
Yeah.
in terms of his tuwid na daan. But lately, as we are seeing now, it is backfiring on him because how about your allies?
Yeah.
Are they
It should
holier
apply
than
to
thou?
everybody.
Yeah. 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 How expound on that?
Yeah, in the business community, we see that you have a tremendous problem now. Let's say, for example, customs.
Yes.
The congestion there is delaying. Do you know that to deliver for the trucking, the cost now is triple what it was before? And it's all because the trucks will have to take 2 to 3 days.
Yeah.
What used to take a day will now take 2 to 3 days, so they charge you more. So if you're a small businessman, you lose your margin right away.
Yeah.
Because of the congestion. And to what would you attribute the congestion at customs?
Yeah.
It's corruption, plain and simple. So, you may have some high-profile programs running after the previous administration and all of that. But what about your backyard? The issues that really matter to the people down there,
Right.
customs, for instance.
Well, on that, Conrad, you wrote an
there?
article recently called Smoke of Genius. We'll show an excerpt from that article where you said the problem is that in the past several years under the Aquino Part 2 administration, at least according to business groups, the unrestrained massive smuggling already weakened many local industries to the point of collapse.
Yeah.
So we keep seeing the government is saying the economy is going up, but then we have this.
Well, these are thoughts that I gathered from my research. Number one engine of the economy, of course, the remittances of Filipino overseas. We all know that for the past 20 years, they've been the biggest factor behind why we're still afloat. And then you have the income from business processing outfits, the offices, the BPOs, the call centers, and all of this. Manufacturing, you can write off. Almost write off. Because
Very
we could not
minimal.
compete against all the imports. Number three factor they're saying is the anti-money laundering law, which prevented people who are stealing money from us, the taxpayers, from taking out the money. So in other words, the what's stolen is still in the economy, and therefore that's propping up the economy. And we all know, in the long run, that's not the right way to build what they call sustainable development, what the economy is called. You need some really hard investments to make the economy grow. And we're not seeing that.
Right. Well, we have a lot to talk about. We've barely scraped the surface here, but we have to take a quick break. News Cafe will be right back.
Kung may isa man pong paksang paborito ikabit sa pangalan ko, ito ay ang Hacienda Luisita. Nais ko lang pong iulat alinsunod sa utos ng Korte Suprema na kompleto na ng Department of Agrarian Reform ang listahan ng mga kwalipikadong benepisyaryo na mabibigyan ng lupa sa Luisita. Ipaalala ko lang po, tamang datos ang unang hakbang sa maayos na implementasyon ng CARPOR. Pero nagmana po tayo ng isang depektibong land records system. Sa susunod na taon, naihain na ang lahat ng mga notice of coverage para sa mga lupaing saklaw ng komprehensibong reformang agraryo.
Welcome back to News Cafe. I'm talking to journalists Conrado Banal, Marichu Villanueva, and Danilo Arao. Okay, so Hacienda Luisita, this is an issue that has plagued the president. Of course, he cannot get away from it. Danny, what are your thoughts on how he's handled this?
November 2014 is the 10th year of the Hacienda Luisita massacre, and we still cannot see justice for, not just for those who were killed during the massacre in 2004, but also for the more than 4,000 plus beneficiaries of the Hacienda Luisita estate. While it's good that President Aquino made mention of the Hacienda Luisita issue in his State of the Nation address, we still see the dissatisfaction of many farm workers as regards their, unrewarding toil.
Right.
There is, I think, a movement called Luisita Watch
Yes.
that seeks to put out into the open what's happening in Hacienda Luisita. But of course, from the media perspective, the sad reality is that agriculture is still perceived as a deadbeat. So the running joke is that somebody should be dead before you get to cover agriculture.
Awful.
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah.
So actually, that's the sad reality. There's not much media coverage on Hacienda Luisita, but we have to keep in mind that the promise of distribution of land has been there since the time of the mother of the
Yes.
current president.
Yeah.
But up to now, there had been creative ways to veer away from the actual distribution of land through, among others, stock distribution options,
Yes.
where you give the illusion of the farm workers as being stockbrokers, allegedly.
Yes.
But these are just, ownership on paper.
Right.
What is being demanded by the many farm workers of Hacienda Luisita is the application of the land to the tiller principle. And so the analysis of Hacienda Luisita cannot be divorced from the CARPER or the extension program of the
Right.
Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program, which ironically started during the time of the mother of the current president. So that's why there is a pending bill, the GARB, the Genuine Agrarian Reform Bill, which seems to be gathering dust right now because it seems that the landowner-dominated Congress wouldn't want to pass a law that would give the actual land to the tiller, that would operate rather on the
Right.
land to the tiller principle.
So basically, we will not see a resolution to this problem in the president's administration.
Because of flawed laws and because of the interests. If you have a landowner president, you wouldn't want, he would be expected to, protect his own land holdings as well as his family's.
But Pinay came up with a DAP. Creative
brought up the
solution.
DAP. So
Yes,
what-
yes, that's a good point.
So that, of course, when he just talked about, so when President Aquino talked about the DAP, he gave a very interesting speech. What is your take on that, on how he talked about his defense of the DAP?
Before I go on to that,
Okay.
because the palace itself confirmed part or portions of the DAP, the Disbursement Acceleration Program, has been used to pay off Hacienda Luisita. And as you said, Carper, the 16th Congress did not even pass the extension. They ended the first regular session
Yeah.
without passing Carper.
Yeah.
And now we have this DAP. And everybody is now coming out, those who received DAP are now coming out, oh, we use our DAP, it did not go into any corruption. And the Department of Agri and Reform was the last to admit, oh, we use our DAP to pay off some landowners.
Yeah.
That included Hacienda Luisita.
Right.
It was like an afterthought.
Yeah.
So suddenly, these things come out, no, at the fore, Conrad?
But why did we need the disbursement acceleration program in the first place?
Exactly.
You know, when you do the General Appropriations Act, it's supposedly a well-crafted, you know, it's
All
a
the
tight,
list, the
tight
item.
law and things like that. And now it turns out that you need to juggle billions upon billions. I will understand, you know, they were quoting a section in the administrative code that the president is allowed to transfer. I will understand that for flexibility. Let's say we're talking
Yeah.
about 100 million or 200 million. That's for flexibility, you know. But when you're talking about hundreds of billions,
Billions, yeah.
that's already rewriting the law, I
Yeah.
think. And the
150
question is, why did we need to do
Yeah.
that?
And you had to redefine savings. You have to force certain government agencies with slow-moving projects to, you know, you get the money from them and then you tell them that, no, this is not for you, this will be savings.
Right.
So
Very
So there
questionable.
was
weird.
something wrong in how they're managing the government.
Yeah.
If you have this money and you cannot spend it, what were you doing? You were sleeping on the job. You're not investing
Yeah.
the money. You're not spending the money that you're supposed to spend.
But
something
remember,
like
the Supreme Court previously upheld the previous presidents in juggling of funds within the department, using
Yeah.
the savings within the department that has savings.
Yeah.
But now they had the cross-border, giving out extra savings to the legislative, to the judiciary.
Yeah.
That's
Very ad
what
hoc,
the
yeah.
Supreme Court is saying,
Well, the Supreme Court.
unconstitutional.
And huge amounts.
And huge
Yeah.
amounts.
It's so mysterious to me. Why do you ask for a lot of money that
Right.
you cannot spend? You,
So it's
you ask
good
Congress.
that the Supreme Court has made this ruling of it being unconstitutional.
Yeah, it
How-
has to stop somewhere.
Yeah. How do you
And
feel
now's the
about
time to stop.
President Aquino now going against the Supreme Court? Is this a good move? What do
You know,
think?
I have covered 4 presidents at Malacanang, and this is the first time I heard a sitting president virtually challenging the Supreme
Yeah.
Court to its decision. And it's a unanimous decision. And it's not even a split one. It's a unanimous 13-0.
Yeah.
And he is publicly, openly challenging the Supreme Court ruling.
Right.
And any Supreme Court ruling has the law in effect, as the effect of the law of the
Yes.
land.
Yeah. And this is causing a lot. Like the University of the Philippines is very much against this. Tell us
It
about
sends a
that.
chilling effect, and this is partly the reason why the University of the Philippines has taken a position, UP Diliman to be more specific,
Yeah.
has taken a position against the disbursement acceleration program, calling for transparency and accountability of the
Yes.
government. Even in our own college, we also saw certain flaws in some policies of the administration. If we want to move into another topic, for example, the cybercrime law is something that we've vigorously opposed in coordination with many journalists and media groups out there. The same is true with the need to pass a genuine freedom of information law.
Yes.
So going back to the SONA, we hope that the President would mention bills that should be urgent, like the Freedom of Information Act, the scrapping of the cybercrime law. It may
Yes.
be suntok sa buwan, but we hope that it will happen.
Right.
And the disbursement acceleration program, going back there, it would
Yes.
appear that while end users like the University of the Philippines got DAP money, we want to clarify that it's not the end user who should be penalized as a result. And in fact, we would go back to the issue that Conrado Banal eloquently put that if it's really necessary, if it's a project that's absolutely necessary, then it should be in the General Appropriations Act. Even
Yes.
the dream project, the project NOAA, it's made out of, it's funded by DAP money, but it's a noble project between UP and the DOST. And the
Right.
question there is, if it's really a priority of the Aquino administration, there should be an item in the General Appropriations Act and not put it under DAP.
Yeah.
No, but the Supreme Court had already ruled
Yeah.
the beneficiaries will not be penalized.
Yes, that's correct.
There's the non-binding ruling, portion of that ruling, that it opens President Aquino and his cabinet secretaries to penalty.
Yeah.
Because the Supreme Court was saying it's up to the courts to determine what liability they have to face. And that's why we are now seeing impeachment moves against him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
So when you see the president defending the DAP as having some benefits to the country, do you believe there's really no ground for what he's saying?
Yeah.
Do you see any benefit at all with the DAP, Conrad?
Oh, nothing. The worst thing here, I think, Mitzi, is now the attention of the government, the Aquino administration. It has what? 2 years?
Yeah.
2 years to
left.
go.
Yeah.
And we all know that after, on the last year, it's gonna be just coasting along.
Yeah.
Legacy
We
building.
call it lame
Right.
duck president. And because the attention now of the government is towards defending the administration, what happens to the projects? We haven't seen any major infrastructure investment
Yeah.
in the past 4 years under the Aquino
Yeah.
Part 2 administration.
Because they keep on rebuilding the projects.
Right.
Yeah,
Things
and-
change with the new administration.
And, it's
And
taking
the
a long
business
time.
community is so raring to go. They have already created war chests to invest in government projects.
That's
You
why
know,
you
the
believe
big ones.
in the private sector doing the work then.
Yeah,
Cannot
they're
rely on
really
the
excited about because they know that the economy really needs these investments.
Yeah.
And to them, it seems that things are going too slow.
Yeah.
The more now that the DAP is a big issue, it's now really,
You
it
know-
has exploded. So the attention will go there
Yeah.
instead of the project.
Yeah.
The biggest bad signal that President Aquino took in first year of his office is to set aside the Brussels funded Laguna Lake dredging.
Yeah. It's a good,
Multi-million
it's a good
Yeah, it sent a chilling effect on the foreign business community that they are now withholding whatever investments because
Good point.
any change in administration, they can change everything, can
Right.
undo everything.
Back to
Right.
square one.
Yeah.
That's the single biggest
Yeah.
bad signal.
Yeah. Well, not in terms of investments too. President Aquino talked about modernization of hospitals. So let's take a look at this soundbite quickly, what he says about that.
Ang Estado itinayo para paglingkuran kayo. Kung may problema sa kalusugan, dapat kumakalinga ang gobyerno. Sa panahon ng sakuna, nariyan din dapat ito para magbigay lingap. Kaya nga po, todo buhos tayo ng budget sa infrastrukturang pangkalusugan. Nitong nakaraang 3 taon, umabot sa 33 bilyong piso ang nailaan natin para sa pagpapatayo, pagpapaunlad at rehabilitasyon ng 4,518 na ospital, rural health units at barangay health stations sa buong bansa.
We'll get our guests' reactions on this after this short break. And when we return, we will also review more highlights from PNoy's previous SONAs. Welcome back. I'm talking to Conrado Banal, Marichu Villanueva, and Danilo Arao on the state of our nation set against President Aquino's SONA speeches. So we just saw the soundbite from President Aquino about the modernization of hospitals. What is your take on that? They invested supposedly 33 billion pesos for the improvement and modernization of health facilities. Marichu.
Well and good. It's good for our economy, good for our people, social services. People on the countryside and the far-flung areas are being serviced. If the numbers are really correct.
Accurate?
We never know about numbers with
We,
government.
we have no way of auditing them or really confirming eyeball to eyeball. I mean,
It's
Yeah.
what we read in the newspapers.
yes,
the
just numbers.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they're saying this money came from the sin taxes.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's an issue there in the sin taxes because it targeted cigarettes, which is good. We have to make people stop smoking. But then now, the problem is illicit trade of cigarettes. So according to a survey, smoking hasn't really gone down. It's just that the people were forced to spend more money to go to taxes, to pay
Yeah.
for the hospital, something like that.
Yeah.
But what about other diseases, like diabetes?
Right.
Why is there no law against or to
Taking too much sugar.
Sugar,
Eating
sugar
too much
consumption.
sweets.
control
Yeah.
Sugar drinks, sugary
other health
drinks? You
benefits.
know,
Soft drinks.
Especially
you
for
know, you go to
carbonated
the
drinks.
schools.
Yeah.
The school children, they're all drinking
Starts
the
there.
very
Sweet,
high
yeah.
sugar that destroys your teeth, that destroys your system, immune
Right.
system. It lowers down. I mean, you've got to address the health issue, not just in terms of investing on hospitals,
Yeah.
but
Right.
really a whole.
There's a bigger
whole
picture
approach,
to
yes.
look at. Yeah.
But remember, PNoy, who is a smoker, signed into law
That's
recently
it, that's
the
the
graphic
thing.
warning.
He's trying to
That
show
should
he's
be
doing
a credit
something.
to him.
Yeah. Danny.
Well, going back to health services, the bigger question is it really felt by indigent patients? For example, even in the Philippine General Hospital, Maki Pulido, a journalist, made an interesting article about
Compassion.
PGH,
yeah,
right.
about the lack of compassion. Well, we'll not talk about it, but what is necessary to highlight would be the unaffordability of healthcare, even for public hospitals.
Right.
And what's ironic is that while President Aquino made mention of the billions of pesos being poured into healthcare, there are public hospitals that are in the process of being privatized, or even not fully privatized. These are taking on a corporate structure where healthcare is now mainly for profit.
Right.
Even health insurance is much of a joke right
Yes,
now in
it's
the
all about
country.
money.
Yeah, it's all about money. Only the middle class and the rich people can are able to get, decent health insurance. So the problem right now has to do with the poor having access to health care and health services, very much unlike the so-called socialist countries like Cuba,
Yeah.
where if you're sick, you can be assured of adequate health care. If you cannot go to the hospital, it's the hospital that will go to your house.
Right.
And Cuba has cures for cancer, which media do not necessarily report on.
Yes.
And well, the point here is, I'm not saying that we should be like Cuba, but the problem is if there's a way for the Aquino administration to provide adequate
Yeah.
health care, it can be done.
Remember
Yeah.
the PhilHealth? They have
Yeah.
given it down to the local government units to provide PhilHealth so that
Insurance, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
for
Yeah.
insurance. Yeah.
So the thing is, you have insurance, but can you find the corresponding
Hospital
service?
government.
Yes, that's a good
So
point.
many of our
You may have the
citizens-
insurance.
Yeah.
Do you have
Yeah.
the service
Yeah.
for your if you're sick, let's say? But it's not when you're sick that you need the government assistance.
Yeah.
It's preventive.
Yeah.
The
Exactly.
trend now in the
It should
medical
be preventive.
field
because it's
is
very
really
costly
preventive.
when you're already sick.
Yeah, and so the government must come up with program, even spend money for these programs for preventive to
Well, in
prevent
terms of
diseases.
social benefits, it seems we
Like
cannot really
dengue,
rely.
you know.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
When the child is sick, you go to the hospital, you spend more.
Yeah.
So the thing is, kill all the mosquitoes and prevent dengue.
Well, let's take
something
a
like
look
that.
at something else the president said. He talks about now automating water systems and weather
Yeah.
stations. Let's have a look at this soundbite.
Buhat naman ng inilunsad ang Project NOAA noong nakaraang taon. Nakapag-deploy na tayo ng 525 automated water level monitoring stations at automated rain gauges sa 18 major river basins sa ating bansa. Tuloy-tuloy din ang pamamahagi natin ng mga modernong kagamitan tulad ng Doppler radars, tsunami detectors at alerting sirens. Subalit, hindi po sapat ang basta pagbibigay lang ng makabagong gamit at teknolohiya. Sinasanay din natin ang mga nakakatanggap nito kung paanong intindihin, gamitin at palaganapin ang impormasyon. Kapag masama ang panahon, hindi na lamang bilis na hangin ang kanilang basihan. Alam na rin nila kung gaano karaming tubig ang bubuhos at nakakapagbigay sila ng tama at napapanahong babala sa komunidad upang makapaganda.
Okay, so what do you think of this? Is he really trying to do something, or maybe also to help us deal with our bad weather situation, Danny?
Well, to be fair, there is some improvement in terms of predicting what's
Yeah.
going to happen, in the next 24 hours or so at the onset of a typhoon. It's not perfect, but we're getting there. But the problem again has to do with the disbursement acceleration program, if we may go back to that, because there's not much line item budgeting going on for basic services. And one of them has to do with, access to water and ensuring that people get timely information.
Right.
So that's the consideration that we have to remember.
Yeah, Marichu.
And the best example is the recent Glenda.
Yes.
Pag-asa hit it very correctly.
We were more prepared this time.
And the local government responded accurately because they had the accurate information.
Yeah. Yolanda really scared us. At
Yes.
least we learned our lessons.
Yeah.
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 But the thing is, we all know that disasters are going to happen.
Yes.
It's just that we know when they're going to happen. Now, the issue, I think, is after the calamity.
Yeah, the rehabilitation part.
How do
Yes.
you react? I've been to Tacloban recently, and it's still, there's nothing happening there. I tell you, people are still miserable. They're still
Living in tents.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, predicting when calamity is gonna strike is one thing,
Yeah.
but we all know that it's gonna strike.
Yeah.
What do we do now after?
Right.
We have to build disaster-resilient shelters.
Yeah.
And that's what they say they're doing. This is why they established the PAR, the Office of Presidential Office for
Rehabilitation.
Relief and Rehabilitation.
Yeah.
How do you feel the government has been dealing with this? I mean, they keep saying that it takes time to really have a resilient city.
Not really. Well, I'm from Bicol, and Albay to be specific. And of course,
You're a good
we-
governor. So
Yes,
yeah.
I was getting to
He's
that.
used to
Thank you,
that,
Marichu.
yeah.
So that's why that would partly explain why so far there's a zero casualty rate in the recent typhoon. Okay, of course we don't know. Maybe there could be, but we hope not.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, at the local government level, yes, it can be done. But what turns off many people would be, well, without mentioning names right now, there are certain national government officials who would end up blaming,
Yes.
the
always
poor
see that.
especially the poor people who would refuse to
For not listening.
for not listening,
Right.
allegedly. But what we fail to consider is the context as to why people would want to hold on to their belongings, even if they're living under the bridge. It's not so easy for them to be,
To
evicted.
let go of their lives.
Yeah.
Why are they living in the bridge in the
To
first
begin
place?
with.
Exactly.
You
Does it
know,
have
We
to do with
look at
That's
votes?
the question.
Yeah.
It's not when you
They-
relocate
they
them
should-
or
They
should
don't like
not.
live there, like there, di ba?
yeah.
It's not as if
Miserably
they
lived
like,
in that kind of shelter.
who would
So-
want to live under the bridge.
Yeah.
That's right. So in that sense, we have so many laws which actually do not allow certain things like that, but enforcement is not very strong when it comes to this administration.
Yeah, and the proper, urban development housing. We have an Urban Development Housing Act, okay?
Yes.
There's a law like that. But the problem with the particular implementation of the law is, okay, you can take out the so-called informal settlers and then put them in a relocation area, but the relocation area is too far from civilization.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Yeah, so
So
therein lies the
livelihood
problem.
is an issue.
Exactly.
And things like the transportation.
And with the meager resources, the two biggest rivals in 2016 are the DILG and the VP Vice President, who was head of the housing.
Did you hear the PR campaign of DNR that they will give away free samplings of trees
Okay.
because of the destruction from Glenda?
Yes.
Okay.
Because a lot of
Is
trees
that
fell down.
right? Because the MMDA is saying they're now
also,
going to
yeah.
give this to
They're
TESDA.
yeah,
to make
MMDA
furniture.
and things like that. There's a trend now. The scientists are studying why a lot of trees fell.
Yes.
And they were concluding that these are trees foreign to our country. You have the mahogany, the eucalyptus, and now they're saying we have
The
to go
fire
back
tree.
to the species that
Endemic to the Philippines.
Yeah.
precisely, you know,
Coconut
lawan,
trees.
the hard trees, nara. Why don't we plant those trees instead of the
Yeah.
foreign varieties? You know?
But we have the coco lisap. we have to address
Something
the
to
coco
watch,
lisap.
something else to watch out for. Now, you mentioned the lame DAP president earlier, no?
Yeah.
So I want to talk. You wrote an article about this before, Marichu, and we'll show something quickly on that, where you said that PNoy opted to confront DAP bashers with undertones of impeachment against the SC justices. Whoever wrote that speech last Monday, when he said that, when he delivered that speech, in defense of DAP, did a great disservice to PNoy. It sent a very bad message.
Yes.
Why is that?
Because, I mean, if you're trying to call the people to unity or to unify behind you, it's not the way to get support when you yourself cannot even agree with the Supreme
Yeah.
Court.
Yeah.
The least that he can do as chief executive is to respect the ruling of the High Court, which is a unanimous one. And now, at the back of our minds, yes, he has good faith, as the Supreme Court quoted. He has good faith in trying to expedite the release of these funds, idle funds, just lying there idle,
What do
to
they
make
say
use of
about
it.
the road to hell?
Paved with good intentions.
Yeah.
But the problem is, these last 2 years of the administration is preparations for the next elections.
Yes.
And they are really, you cannot remove the doubts that this will be used to prop up somebody's candidacy.
Right. Well, what do you think about his advisors? I mean, who are these people that are supposed to be giving him, kind of the good direction towards the right path?
As I gather from my reporters,
Yeah.
he is really obstinate. He is, when my reporter was asked, what do you think will be his message in the SONA? And I'm giving this in the very rough way. I did no wrong. I can do no wrong. I will never do wrong.
Oh boy,
That's the
very
summary.
tough.
In a way.
Now-
Well, that's the president always.
Yeah, well, I'll give you gentlemen more time to speak. We need to take another break. When we return, we'll talk about President Aquino's last 2 years in office. You're watching News Cafe, and we have Conrado Banal, Marichu Villanueva, and Danilo Arao at the table tonight. All right, so we were just talking about this DAP speech, which you said was not very well done. Now, earlier we were talking about how he was trying to use more street language. People were even joking that maybe his sister had coached him on this because he was saying things like "now na." And so, what do you
Excuse
think
me
about
po.
this? Oh, Danny, you talked about this. What did you think
Of
about?
course,
that
he's trying to
approach?
endear himself to the masses, and that would partly explain why he opts to speak in Filipino for most of his speeches, including the important ones like the State of the Nation addresses.
Charm offensive.
The charm offensive, okay, as adequately put. But the problem here has to do with truth-telling, because no amount of rhetoric or messaging could ensure acceptability to people.
Right.
And that would partly also explain why the general perception toward the DAP speech was not so well received.
Yeah.
Because while people may have understood the message, people have perceived him to be quite hard-headed or even vindictive. Okay,
Right.
if you want to be more harsh in your language, you would say that he's being arrogant in challenging a co-equal branch of government to some sort of a fist fight.
Yeah.
And the one to intervene would be the Congress, which is
Siding with
dominated
him.
by the
Yeah.
Liberal Party.
Yeah.
So it's like your street bullying tactic.
Right.
So you cannot blame people if they perceive it that way.
You said, pag mumuni-muni sa gabi, hindi na itim ang gabi ng lagim sa lipunan, kulay dilaw na kasi ang kampo ng kadiliman. Anong ibig sabihin nun?
Well, I think the message is clear there. It's in Filipino. So the color yellow has to do with the current administration, and the so-called evil may have to do with the policies that are implemented by the current administration. It has been a long time since Aquino assumed the office in 2010,
Yes.
and we haven't felt the promise of change.
Right.
Actually, the messaging at the start was very cleverly put. Wala nang wang-wang, wala nang counterflow. So these are very, very vivid images
Right.
of change.
That's the inaugural speech.
That's the inaugural speech, exactly.
Nawala na dahil sobrang traffic.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Hardly moving.
But if you go around, levity aside, there's still the wang-wang. There's still the well, on my way here, I saw a lot of vehicles counterflowing, and traffic enforcers are just letting
gotten
them
worse.
slide.
Yeah.
So it's much worse. So there is that problem of, clicking
Yeah.
to the masses, because the truthfulness leaves much to be desired.
Right. Well, the president's popularity ratings have been going down. What do you think he'll
Exactly.
be doing in the last 2 years to bring this up, Conrad? Or
Well,
what should he be doing?
I don't think he has to make an effort to bring it up, because to bring up his ratings, because last 2 years, he should have done everything in his first, second year, and in these last 2 years, he should be now closing and doing the finishing touches, so to speak, or the fine-tuning of all the programs that he must have implemented. I mean, even before you run for office, you should have a program, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the way it looked, he ran for office, he won, and then they were trying to come up with
Reluctantly.
some program.
Yeah.
And so the delay there is that 4 years from hence, 4 years since he won and became president, on the platform of clean government, we still see corruption.
Yeah.
We still see a lot of it. We see the DAP, which is synonymous to corruption to many people.
Yeah.
And then we don't see the projects that, the traffic, the wang that will solve the wang and the need for that. We
Yeah.
need infrastructure. We need more roads. We need the airports. We need seaports. There's this is my favorite. This is my beef. In the Aquino government was so proud that we were going up in the competitiveness index
Right.
of the World Economic Forum.
Yeah.
We're going up. Very good.
Credit rating up.
Yeah.
Yes.
But if you look at the infrastructure component of that competitive index, we are something like 100 plus out of 140 or 98 out of 140. In terms of seaport, we're 100 plus.
Yeah.
In terms of roads, so the problem really here is the lack of action of the Aquino administration. It's all talk.
Yeah.
About solving problems, solving the wang. Okay, wang, but where's the corresponding action to prevent the wang?
Yeah.
There's nothing.
And now we're having power crisis.
Yes, and in fact, there's talk now of granting him emergency
Emergency
powers.
powers.
What do you think about that? Is this necessary?
Offhand, there's really no need for that. But the present laws is really geared towards favoring these existing IPPs, independent power producers. It turns out in the EPIRA, the government is prevented from constructing new power plants.
Yeah.
They put that in the law to keep them profitable. And how about us, consumers?
Yeah.
We have to bear the cost of these IPPs.
Yeah, we have the highest electricity costs probably in the
Yeah,
world.
in Asia, the whole of
Yeah,
Asia still.
yeah.
And I don't think it's going down any soon, because you see, we're trying to become better than the industrialized countries by wanting to have renewable
Right.
energy sources. We're forcing this.
Yeah.
So we're giving the renewable energy companies a lot of margin so that they can make money.
Attract them to put up.
And that adds to our cost.
Yeah, it's going to be more
And
expensive.
we're forgetting that the real need is the base load,
Clean energy costs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We have
that's
to pay for
expensive.
clean energy. But right now, they're into coal, which
Yeah.
is really
That's
pollutant.
so damaging,
Yeah.
and to people,
Yeah.
also the human impact.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about defense. Of course, we're always talking about our tensions with China, now the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement. What do you think of that?
Unfortunately, foreign policy is not one of the better or the strengths of the president, and we have seen how he quarreled with China,
Yeah.
with Taiwan, with Hong Kong. Fortunately, it took former President Estrada to settle the Hong Kong thing.
Do you think it's in his personality? The belligerent. Well,
Obstinate.
You say he's obstinate,
He was
yes.
attacking the Supreme
No,
Court.
it's
He was-
good
Yeah.
for us because we have to keep our state above protect ourselves from being bullied. But he has to give it to his
Subordinates.
subalterns to do that quarreling, not him.
Yeah.
Not him doing the quarreling.
Yeah.
Let his DFA secretary do the talking.
Right.
So at least there's some...
Or the ambassador there.
Or the ambassadors.
China.
Yeah. So what about in terms of the Bangsamoro? Is that a good step then? We have the Bangsamoro Framework Agreement.
We are replicating what has been done before
The
and
arm law. Yeah.
over and over again.
Just a different name,
There's a
different
different
package.
name.
It become a pageantry.
Yeah.
This Mindanao issue, every administration must come up with something about it, and to show the people, and
Something's being done.
something is
Right.
being done. It's become
Yeah.
repetitive.
So you think it will warrant him the Nobel Peace Prize?
Far from that. Well, so much
Yeah,
dissatisfaction.
exactly.
Of course, we'll probably be seeing a lot of protests during the SONA, as it happens
course.
every year. You, Danny, are also active with certain groups that are really pushing for the impeachment cases. You said are
Yeah.
releasing youth groups and.
Well,
Yeah.
as a matter of disclosure, I'm one of the petitioners in the first impeachment complaint that was filed last Monday.
Okay.
Yes. So
What group?
the group of it's a big group of Bayan Muna and
Yeah.
others.
Yeah.
Anyway, basically the grounds would be betrayal of public trust and culpable violation of the Constitution. Our petition focuses on the disbursement acceleration
Right.
program as to why this had to be done.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for reasons that we've discussed earlier,
Yeah.
there's no need for the DAP anyway.
Yeah.
And there's a tendency for the current president to act like a dictator in terms of pushing for certain projects that he would want to push for.
To quote
So,
Miriam,
yes.
do you think you're lucky?
Yeah. Well, yeah. But of course, the campaign, yeah, that's a good point.
Miriam
Of course,
mentioned.
well, if you want to be pragmatic about it, President Aquino and his subordinates make a good analysis that the impeachment is all a numbers game. Okay.
Right.
Right now, we have 7 legislators endorsing the are expected to vote in favor of the impeachment complaint. We would need 90 more.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't know if we will be able to get it.
No
but-
matter that.
Yeah.
It has to be done
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
for posterity,
For the
for the
record.
sake of the record.
For the
It
record.
has
Yeah.
to be done. That's something
done.
that we can no longer tolerate things like this in government.
Yes,
and therefore
exactly.
something has to be done.
Yeah.
Well, whatever the result, well and
We
good.
have
Yeah.
made
But we'll accept it.
Well, we're looking
the
for
people-
inspiration, hopefully, on the 28th. Now, just a bit of trivia. Apparently, 2.2 million pesos has been allocated for the SONA. And apparently,
Okay.
50% of this is for food. Why? 30 to 40% for the reference materials.
Do
And
they have pork in the food?
I'm sure, lechon, maraming
let
lechon.
me see, let me
And 10 to 20% for repair of the batasan decorations, repainting the new flag.
Renovation, okay.
Last words, what would be your advice to President Aquino? Any maybe if he's, on what he should do, what he can possibly do to strengthen his SONA in the last 2 years, Marichu?
No, I cannot add to what, because he has his own mind.
Yeah.
So let him be.
Yeah. Danny?
Well, not much illusion. As mentioned, it will be more of a media spectacle, I think. We just hope that he'll be more honest and more forthcoming in terms of his analysis of what the country's situation is.
Yes.
But then again, that's wishful thinking for me.
For all of us. Conrad?
Well, I think the administration is in luck still because times are a bit good for people, So there's not much peace and order problem
Yeah.
that he will have to contend. But there will be some protests, if not through social media. But the thing with the SONA now is how does he react to the attacks
Yes.
against him, and therefore will he become more belligerent than ever, or will he just cool down and just tell people, let's take it easy, we'll take it from here,
Yeah.
let's see what's going on.
Well, very interesting indeed. Thank you very much for taking the time to share your minds with us here. And that's News Cafe for tonight. Thank you to my guests Conrado Banal, Marichu Villanueva, and Danilo Arao for being on the show. Do share your thoughts and comments on the discussions in our Twitter and Facebook pages. And remember, you may download the Solar News mobile app to watch News Cafe via live streaming or to catch up on previous episodes. See you next Thursday for another delectable mind brew right here on News Cafe. I'm Mitzi Borromeo. Good night.